Thank you, Edson, for the wonderful song. Blessed Sabbath to everyone. You know, this is a wonderful time for family, right? To be together. Thanksgiving, the holidays, the follow, Christmas coming. It's really family time. I know there were several of our members who are not here who informed me or called me and said, Pastor, we will not be there. We will not be able to listen to you this Sabbath. We have to be out with our family. And I said, that's okay. It's fine. It's good to be with family. Looking around, I'm so happy to see a good friend of mine here, Salino. Good to have you here with Nancy, your wife, and your daughter. We continue to pray for you. We know that there is so much you're going through, but the Lord is our strength. The Lord will continue to guide. I'm so happy to see many of you here today. More so that I have my family here. Our family is here for Thanksgiving. And by the way, I already announced this during the Filipino service earlier. Somehow we did not, sorry Toby, I did not somehow fix this up earlier in the bulletin. But as you know, next Sabbath, our speaker here will be no less than the president of our conference, Southern California Conference, for which we belong. So Elder Belino Salazar will be our speaker here next Sabbath. So don't miss that. Just to give a little kind of caution, it's nice to have the father of our conference here. But sometimes we might be tempted to approach him and tell him of some of our problems here. I hope let's not do that, okay? Let's not bother our president. There are several concerns that you may have. Maybe it will be about the pastor. Bring it to the attention of our Asian region director in the person of Elder Sam Lee. But certainly not the president of our conference, okay? Unless you have some pressing matter maybe that has to do for the benefit of the conference as a whole, yeah, you can talk with him, during the potluck lunch. To be good. He would appreciate very much listening to you. But specific concerns about our church here, no, that's not the proper venue to present it. So just a cautionary point here that I'm bringing up to you, okay? Proceed. Don't forget also that we have a big event coming this December 22. It's amazing how time flies so fast. We are now into December, and that's our Christmas musical here. The music department has prepared something very special for us all on the 22nd of December. So please don't miss out, and invite your friends to please come for this special event. Okay, my message for today is entitled, Follow Me, based on Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. I'd like to read this passage again. I'm reading it from a different version. It's the Christian Standard Version of the Bible. As Jesus went on from there, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the toll booth. And he said to him, Follow me. And he got up and followed him. Follow me. Jesus said these words not once, actually, but many times. Can you recall certain points in the gospel where Jesus said, Follow me? Can you remember some of those passages? Remember to Peter and Andrew, the brothers who were fishing? Jesus said, Follow me, when they were in the Sea of Galilee. Jesus said the same words, of course, in our passage that we just read, in Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. He told Matthew, who was what? Who was a tax collector. He was sitting there at the seat of the customs, And Jesus called him, summoned him, Follow me. And then there was another time, remember, with one of those would-be disciples. He wanted to be a follower of Jesus. He wanted to follow Jesus, and Jesus said to him, Follow me. But then he was kind of hesitant. He said, my father just passed away, I have to bury him. And remember the words of Jesus? It's kind of curious, right? The word Jesus said. He said, let the dead bury the dead. and come, follow me. He also said the same words to the rich young ruler, which I'm sure you are very familiar. This story is really very fascinating story in the Bible. Okay, I don't know whether I'm clicker there. All right. The rich young ruler, where Jesus said, "Sell all that you possess, give it to the poor, and come, follow me." If you were such a person, would you do such a thing? You go, you sell everything that you possess, your home. Oh, what will happen to your family? Okay? And you follow this itinerant person that you really do not know. He does not even have a place to lay his head. And that was the invitation that Jesus gave to this young man. Very rich young man. Follow me. So to all of us, even today, Jesus is saying, if any man would come after me, okay? If anyone would come after me, let him what? Deny himself. Take up his cross and follow me. These words, follow me, are words of entreaty. It is an invitation. It is even actually a command, by the way. It is so plain, it is so personal, it is so direct. The words are so simple as to cut through complex theology. You do not need deep theology to understand the significance of those words. Follow me. These words, by the way, follow me, are no respecter of denominational ties or hierarchical or ecclesiastical hierarchies, rather. They do not bow to rank or privilege. They are tall enough and deep enough to guide this church in the most doubtful and even uncertain of times. Follow me. You know, there are several considerations here about this passage. As I was pondering about this weeks ago, pondering upon this passage, there are several considerations that I would like to present to you today that make me really have a new appreciation of these words of Jesus. Follow me. Anyone who says, follow me, is going somewhere. Right? That's the first point that you will right away see. Anybody who says, follow me, he's going someplace. And you know, when I think about this, Jesus saying, follow me, I like that because it means that he is setting a direction for us. Even in the many uncertainties of life, these words are words of assurance. Follow me. I have a direction for you. At first, this word seems to be intrusive, so unwelcoming. It tends to invade our privacy. These are words that threaten to dislocate us, actually, to bring about a crisis when somebody says, follow me. But think a little longer, brothers and sisters, in this passage. Think a little longer, and you will notice here that it really appeals to something that is deep within us. Okay? What this passage is really telling us, is what? He wants to make a connection with us. It's trying to make a connection with us, to go with this person who knows where he is going. Jesus has a plan. Jesus has a work to do. He has a purpose to achieve in history and even beyond. And in these words, follow me, we see that Jesus stoops down to really include us. You and I are included in this invitation, follow me. It's very interesting as I went through the original Greek word for this passage, follow me. The Greek word follow, used here in the Gospels of Matthew, is rooted in the word the road. It has something to do with the road. It's similar to the Greek Hebrew word derek. And that's why my son's name is Derek. Because in Hebrew, the word derek means path, or a road, or a street. It can mean a literal path or a road. It can also mean theologically, the weight of that meaning, is something. To follow, in other words, is to share the road. And this was really the point of Jesus when he told that rich young ruler in Matthew chapter 19, verse 21. The man must sell his possessions, give them all to the poor, and he must follow Jesus in discipleship. The command, forms an invitation. Literally. It really literally is saying, go the road with Jesus. Following wherever he went. Making a clear break, from the former lifestyle. So Jesus' call is really very, very radical when you really think about it. When he says, follow me. When he told this rich young ruler, follow me. Dispense of all your possessions, you give to the poor, and you follow me. You see, Jesus did not leave that person to himself. He was actually inviting this rich young ruler to be a disciple. To suffer with him. To meet challenges with him. And that's the same invitation that Jesus is giving us. The Christian's prayer should not be for a longer stay with Jesus, but rather for a closer walk with Jesus. For a closer walk with God. Now another thing. Anyone who says, follow me, is more interested actually in the future than in the past. Have you noticed that? With Jesus, it is not where you have been that really matters, but where you are going. It's not whether you have fallen in sin, brothers and sisters, but whether you get up from that condition and follow Jesus. Not whom you have hurt, people that you have hurt in the past, but whom you will help in the future. There is a new approach now in psychiatry. It's not really new. It has been around for several years now, which was pioneered by this person, Dr. William Glaser. It's known actually as reality therapy. He pioneered this idea of reality therapy. And I think this approach of reality therapy actually sounds, or it makes good sense to me personally. Reality therapists insist that it is really ineffective and it is futile to keep on digging around somebody's past, getting people to recollect or even magnify their yesterday's failures and recall how the world has mistreated them. The important thing to get them is to face their needs and prepare for the future that is worth living. Notice what Dr. Glaser said here. He wrote, without denying that the patient had an unsatisfactory past, we find that to look for what went wrong does not help that person or him. What good comes from discovering that you are afraid to assert yourself because you had a domineering father, for example? Both patient and therapist can be aware of this historical occurrence, and they can discuss it in all of its ramifications for years. But the knowledge, he said, will not help the patient assert himself now. Now that's very, very important, by the way. And many psychiatrists of today are beginning to awaken and see the significance of what Dr. Glaser is trying to say here. Now, when you go through the pages of the Bible, you will find, to your surprise, you will discover how little Jesus really spent time allowing people to expand or even explain the burden of their past. Isn't that interesting? You read through the Bible. You can see that Jesus is really a modern psychiatrist. He really knows the goings of our minds and our attitudes and our hearts. No, he does not let those people dwell in their past. Remember that woman who was taken in adultery? You remember that story, right? That's found in John chapter 8. This woman was brought into the presence of Jesus to be condemned. What did Jesus do? Jesus did not try to explore the circumstances that had pushed this woman to her fall. Did Jesus make any investigation about her past? No. He simply took the woman by her hand and said, "Go your way and sin no more." You find that in John chapter 8, verse 11. That's all Jesus said to this woman. And it was a life-changing experience for that woman, I tell you. Think about Nicodemus, who came to Jesus by night. This man was literally bound by an impossible legalism. He was a Pharisee, you see. Jesus didn't ask him if he got, how he got to be that way. How he got to be a legalist, so literal about the interpretation of the law and all that. But Jesus simply said, "You must be born again. You must be born again." John 3, verse 3. But I think of all the stories that we find in the Gospels, what really strikes me most is the story of the prodigal son. You know the story. It's found in Luke chapter 15 of your Bibles, okay? This to me is the most outstanding, clear example that shows how God deals with men and women who have failed or who have fallen. The younger brother in the far country never got to recite the speech. Actually, he was going back to his father and he already prepared in his mind a speech that he was going to present to his father. He already had it all memorized when he came to his father. Instead, his first words were actually overwhelmed by his father's love. He was given a ring for his finger, a robe, and shoes for his feet. And he was restored. He was restored by his father to the full status of a son. Because you see, brothers and sisters, this is very, very important. To be penitent is to be forgiven. And to be forgiven is to rise and follow. Not many words, not so many words that you need to speak out. Jesus reads the intent of your heart. Yes, we might fall and we may fail again and again. We are going to face a new year, and you can be sure we will fall, we will fail again and again. But we don't move carelessly because remember, our failures are still very, very much present in our minds. But we know that we are being led into the light and the love of God. If you follow Jesus. Let me flash here on the screen the words of this famous, actually he's one of those New Testament scholars, by the name of T.W. Manson. He said, "The living Christ still has two hands, one to point the way and the other held out to help us along the way. So the Christian ideal lies between us, or before us, not as a remote or austere mountain peak, an ethical Everest which we must scale or climb by our own skill or our own endurance, but as a road," he said, "as a road on which we must walk with Christ as our guide and our friend. And we are assured that as we set out on the journey, that He is with us always, even unto the end of the world," as He promised in Matthew 20, verse 20. Finally, one last point that I would like to give in consideration of this phrase, this passage of Jesus, "Follow me." Consider the fact that whoever commands us to follow and wins our allegiance has given us a norm. He has given us a norm by which to test, our living. One of the things that is very fascinating about Jesus and the salvation that He provides for us is that Christ does not absorb us or intend to absorb us into Himself. is a distance, remember, between the Lord and the servant. So that our selfhood and individuality must be preserved. However, He calls us not to oppressive imitation. He does not call us even to be copycats, but He calls us to follow Him. Each of us in the context of our time and our place. Brothers and sisters, there is really no time or place or circumstance where one cannot follow. What Christian living is all about, personally and even corporately as a church here, is following Jesus Christ. It is important for you and for me to see that this particular time is in the life of our church, when we are being urged on by our living Lord to move on towards history, move on toward the future. Follow me. That's what Jesus is inviting us to do. This is the word that ought to monitor what we do and what we say, what we think, even as elders of this church, as deacons, as ministry heads, department leaders, and even members of Glendale Filipino Adventist Church. Church leaders, we who are part of this leadership of the church should be asking, is this action, is this decision, is this policy, is this attitude of such quality that it is moving the church into the direction that Jesus is leading? We should be asking that every time we meet for board meetings, for ministry meetings. We may not always agree on what it means to follow Jesus, but we cannot question the fundamental assumption here that we are here to follow Jesus. This is the acid test of each and every one of us here. It is the acid test that should strip any of the theological decorations we may want to put up. Jesus is saying, follow me. To follow Jesus is to have a plan. To follow Jesus is to face and to embrace the future. Every time He comes across our way and bids us follow, remember, Jesus always creates a crisis. And we can never be the same again. For when that command, touches our souls, we can choose to die to God and to live for self, or to die to self and live for God. Only two ways. The kind of loyalty I should like to command of myself and see this congregation offer up to God can be summed up in the words of an obscure Bible character. You could hardly even remember him. His name is Ittai. He was a Philistine, but he was one of the mighty men of David, of King David. Notice what Ittai said when we find us in 2 Samuel, chapter 15, verse 21. When many of David's soldiers were choosing Absalom instead of the king, David said to Ittai, why don't you go back? He said, why don't you go back to Jerusalem? You see, David was fleeing from his son. He told Ittai, why don't you and your men, your mercenaries, Philistines, these were Philistines who were converts to Judaism, they followed after David. Why don't you go back to Jerusalem? You have served me well. But notice the answer here of Ittai in 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 21. He said, as the Lord lives, and as my Lord the King lives, surely in what place my Lord the King shall be, whether in death or life, even there also will your servant be. Wow. What loyalty. Such loyalty, determination to follow His Lord. Brothers and sisters, today, Jesus comes to us and He's saying, follow me. Follow me. That's His invitation, His command to you and to me. And the question I would like to leave with each of us as we close our service is this. When will we really be? Okay, listen to this. When will we really be dead serious in following Him?